know about you, but as a true believer in God, we all get to a place where sometimes we just get mad at God. We don't get mad at God because God isn't God, but we get mad at God because we don't understand why. But you're not alone this afternoon, because there are some people in Houston who are mad at God. There's some people in Florida who are mad at God. There's some people in the Caribbean islands who are mad at God. But the text lets us know this morning that every now and then we're going to experience hurt and we're going to experience pain. But even though you're going through what you're going through, you ought to look to Jesus. I need y'all to help me preach this afternoon, because the writer of the text in the book of Hebrews, many theologians, many scholars, many Bible readers would suggest that Paul writes this text. But irregardless of who writes this text of Hebrews chapter 12 and verse number 2, there is a message that he wants us to understand. Come on now. In fact, he opens up this text with imagery. Imagery is a literary device used to paint a picture, to give the reader or the viewer a photograph or a snapshot of what it is that they are trying to explain and convey to those who are partaking in what they have created. Uniquely enough, this Hebraic text is full of this imagery. In verses 1 and 2, there seem to be almost 5 points of imagery. Verse number 1 says, we are compassed by such a great host or cloud of witnesses. ESV says we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. Point number 1 of imagery. He refers to this gathering of witnesses as a cloud. He's saying that there is this great gathering of people. Here, in what seems to be, he paints the picture of an arena or the Coliseum. You've been to the concert, you've been to the ball game, you've been to the show. Pop has taken me and Adrian and Oliver, he's taken us to a couple Mets games, and we're in the stadium, and the crowd of witnesses seems to be that of a cloud. And we are all there to witness the game. But the game that the writer is referring to is not any old game, but he refers to it as a race. But this race is not just any kind of race. This is not a race where you run fast and you finish quick. This is not a race where you exude one great burst of energy and you've accomplished the goal. No, brothers and sisters, family and friends, ladies and gentlemen, this kind of race is something like a marathon. And we know this because the text uses one specific word. Depending on what translation you're reading, it may say patience. Or another translation may say endurance. No matter what the word is, the writer is trying to tell you and I that in running this race, we've got to endure. Here it is, y'all. It's in your program. We've got to be steadfast. and unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord. Let me tell you something here. If you are a child of God, if you are a true child of God, you learn how to endure some things. If you are a true child of God, you learn how to be patient in some things. Many of you here are parents or grandparents, and you knew that if you really loved your child, if you really loved your grandchild, you had to learn how to be patient with them. You had to learn how to endure their ignorance and endure their bad decisions, because you understood that there were some things that they needed to learn. Grandmama said it this way: Lord, be patient with me. Or she would say to you and to I, please be patient with me. Why? Because God is not through with me yet. And I want to tell you this afternoon, please be patient with me. I don't have it all together. I don't have all the answers. I don't have every piece to the puzzle. But if you be patient with me, I guarantee you that there's something that God is doing in my life. And if you just stick around and see, you'll see that there's some good things that's getting ready to come out of me. There's some great things that's getting ready to come out of me. And I want to tell you this afternoon, I know you may be hurting. I know you may be sad right now, Pastor. I know you've been running this race for 11 years, but keep on running. Amen. It's all right. Keep on fighting. Yes. Keep on pressing. Because God is not through with you yet. Verse number 1 says, looking to Jesus, or verse number 1 says, therefore we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. But then he says, let us lay aside every weight and sin. The language is very important here. It's sort of genius language, because he does not say lay aside every weight. He does not even say lay aside every sin. He says to lay aside every weight and sin. Therefore, the language would imply that they are not always the same. Yes, don't get me wrong. Every sin is a weight, but not every weight is a sin. But John Piper would suggest that in this analysis of the text, you should not even ask yourself the question, is it a weight or is it a sin? The question you should ask yourself is, does it help me to run? Or does it get in my way? And if the answer is yes, it does get in my way. If the answer is no, it does not help me to run, then let me help you. The Bible says that you ought to lay it aside. Yeah. And you may get to the place in your life where you say, this is a lot of loss and not a lot of gain. I've been losing a lot, but I have not been gaining a lot. Let me suggest to you, friends, this afternoon, that it's all right when you lay the weight aside, and it's all right when you lay the sin aside, because the more that you're able to press, and the more that you're able to move, and the more that you're able to run, is getting you closer to your goal. Bible says, I press towards the mark for the prize of the high calling in Christ Jesus. So yes, you may be dealing with weight, lay it down. Yes, you may be dealing with sin, lay it down. Yes, it may feel as if you're giving up more than you're taking in. It may feel as if you're leaving behind more than what is in store for you. But Grandma said it this way, oh, I want to see him. I want to look upon his face. There to sing forever of his saving grace. Oh, the streets of glory, let me lift my voice. Cares have passed, home at last, ever to rejoice. He says, lay aside every weight and sin. Then he goes on to say, looking to Jesus, who is the English Standard Version says, is the founder and perfecter of our faith. For the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Once again, the way that the writer lays this text out is very intrinsic, because it is a way that we are able to layer what he is saying. And in my analysis of this text, I began to put the pieces together to paint a picture of a staircase in which he speaks to where you take one step, and then the next clause implies another step. The following clause implies another step. And in total, there are 4 main steps to verse number 2. I'll lay it out for you if you have time. Step number 1, he says, looking to Jesus. Let the church say, looking to Jesus. Looking to Jesus. He says, looking to Jesus. So there is direction implied in the text. There is a focal point implied in the text, because it seems as if this writer is creating what is a masterpiece in his understanding of who Jesus is and what Jesus has come to do. And any master knows that in order to create a masterpiece, you must have a focal point. But we are privileged, ladies and gentlemen, we are privileged, family and friends, to serve a God that does not give us a focal point, because he is the focal point. He does not tell us, look over there, because that's where your joy is. He says, you can look on me. I got all the joy that you need. He does not say, look over there, because that's where your peace is. He says, no, you can look on to me, because the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your heart and your mind in Christ Jesus. He does not say, look over there, because that's where your happiness is. He says, no, you can look on me. I got all the happiness that you need. He doesn't say, look over there, because that's where your joy is. He says, no, you can look on me, because God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten. I wish I had a witness here. That whosoever believes on him will not perish but have everlasting life. I wish I had somebody in here that could testify that I am grateful that I serve a God that does not point me in the direction of a bottle. He does not point me in the direction of a man, of a woman, of a boy, of a girl, but he says, I got everything that you need. Looking to Jesus. Step number 1. Then step number 2 says, looking to Jesus, who is the founder and perfecter. King James might be what you have, which says he is the author and finisher of our faith. Not only should we look to Jesus, but we should look to Jesus, Pastor, because he is the author and the finisher of our faith. Or he is the founder and perfecter of our faith. Now, this deals with the job description of Jesus. That he finds and perfects, that he authors and finishes. That word finish has a dual meaning. Finish can be to complete, or finish can be to, which is why it says in the ESV, to perfect. Let me give you an example. You're dealing with wood. Let's say you're sitting in the pew right now. It's made of wood. So when the carpenter constructed that pew that you're sitting on right now, he had to cut out some pieces. He had to put those pieces together. But even after he put the pieces together, it wasn't done. Because he had to finish it. And when he finished it, that's what brought that shine that you see in the pew. Because if he never finished it, it would be a dull, dainty, dark, dusty looking pew. But he decided, because he started it, cut out the pieces, and put the pieces together, what would make the pew look good to you would take him being able to finish it. A lot of us, we get discouraged because we think that we ought to be somewhere else in life. We think we ought to drive a different car, and we think we ought to live in a bigger house, and we think we ought to have different friends, and we ought to have a better job. But we're confused because even though the pieces have been cut out and they may have been put together, hadn't been finished yet. I got a witness over here. And God can't deliver you the way that he wants to deliver you if you have not been finished. Pastor, I've come to encourage you. Don't get discouraged by the crowds, and don't get discouraged by what people may say, think, or do against you. Don't get discouraged by comments on Facebook posts, because people look at you for what you look like now, but you can tell them God is finishing me. And the way that I know that God is finishing me is because he started me. And he that has begun a good work in you will perform it until the day of Jesus Christ. I know you feel down right now, but he's finishing you. I know you may not understand the ins and the outs of what God is doing, but just know that he's finishing you. I know you may not see the end from the beginning, but know that he is finishing you. And when he finishes you, the hymn says, I shall come forth as pure gold. I know I'm preaching in here this afternoon. Step number 1, looking to Jesus. Step number 2, looking to Jesus, who is the author and finisher of our faith. Hold on. He's the author and the finisher of our faith. So then the question you should ask is, preacher, what is faith? You're telling me that he's the author and the finisher of our faith, but what is faith? Okay, I'll tell you what faith is. What we have to understand about faith is that it goes a step beyond trust. Because to trust in someone or something, there has to be evidence. In other words, there has to be past performance. You have to be able to go to a record or go to a resource or go to a reference to make the conscious decision to put your trust in someone. But trust is not faith. You go to the doctor's office, you get the news that you've got to have surgery. And so you go call grandma and mom and your cousins and your aunties and uncles. Who should I go to? You ask your doctor, who should I go to for this surgery? And so you can go to my guy. He did a wonderful job, and I came out all right. And you go to that guy, not because you have faith in him, but because you trust him based on evidence. Evidence. But Hebrews chapter 11 says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for. It ain't come yet, but it's hoped for. And here it is. It's the evidence of things not seen. So therefore, faith and trust cannot be the same, because trust is based on evidence that can be seen, can be touched, can be felt, can be heard. But when you put your faith in something, you don't have to have a reference. You don't have to have a resource. Somebody don't have to bring up a name, but you say, I got faith that even though I ain't seen it yet, even though I can't touch it yet, even though I can't hear it yet, I believe that it will be. So he's the author and the finisher of our faith. He's the author and the finisher of our faith. That's step number 2. Step number 3, looking to Jesus, who is the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame. Step number 3. So we got to look to Jesus. Step number 2 says we ought to look to Jesus. He's the author and finisher of our faith. Step number 3 says that we ought to look to Jesus, who is the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross and despised the shame. Now, this may not be wonderful to hear to many of you. This is not prosperity gospel. This is not a feel-good sermon. But I'm not really known to preach feel-good sermons anyway. So I might as well let you know that Jesus had to endure pain. And if Jesus had to endure pain, that means that the followers of Jesus must endure pain. In other words, in this life, in everyone's life, some rain must fall. But watch this, y'all. That clause says, for the joy that was set before him. That means that there was a goal that Jesus had to accomplish, but for him to reach that goal, he had to endure a cross. So the goal is there. But for me to get there, I've got to go through a cross. God has set before each and every one of us goals. He's given each and every one of us assignments, destinies, and purposes that he will accomplish in us. But what I want you to understand is that for you to accomplish the goal, for you to get where God wants you to be, you've got to go through some crosses. You've got to learn how to pick up your cross and follow Jesus. You've got to learn how to pick up your pain and pick up your weight and pick up your burden. But let me tell you something. You're not picking up your cross to carry it forever, but you're picking up your cross to lay it down at the feet of Jesus. You're not picking up your pain for you to carry this pain forever. You're picking up your pain to carry it to the foot of Jesus. You're not picking up this burden for you to carry this burden forever, but you're picking up this burden to carry it to the foot of Jesus. I've come to tell you, you won't cry always. And every tear that you've had to cry, it is not in vain. And every sleepless night that you had to endure, it is not in vain. And every pain that you have felt, it is not in vain. But Jesus says, cast your cares upon me. You can give them to me because I care for you. I can handle it. I can take it. I can endure it. I can overcome it because I have already overcome the world. I feel like preaching in here now. I came to tell you that no matter what you're going through, and no matter what you're facing, and no matter what you're dealing with right now, you can look to Jesus and he can handle it. So I got one more and I'm out of your way. Looking to Jesus. Looking to Jesus, who is the author and the finisher of our faith. Number 3, looking to Jesus, who is the author and the finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame. I would pause there, but I don't have time. He despised the shame. That means that there were some people that might have been talking about him. Some people that might have plotted against him. Some people that wrote some nasty Facebook posts about him. Some people that posted some bad Instagram pictures about him. Some people that put some nasty tweets on Twitter about him. But guess what, y'all? Regardless of all of that, he despised it. He turned his face against it while he was enduring his cross. And can I tell you, every now and then when you're enduring your cross and people want to talk about what you ain't doing and what you ain't got and who you not, you ought to turn away from them, despise the shame that they're trying to put on you because of the joy that is set before you. Which brings me to step number 4, which says, who is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. I thought I have a few more amens there. He is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. So we're running this race with endurance. We're running this race, but we're not looking at the crowd. We're not looking at the cloud of witnesses. But as we're running this race, we're looking to Jesus. Okay? So we're looking to Jesus because he's the author and finisher of our faith. We're looking to Jesus because he endured the cross and despised the shame. But let me tell you something, y'all. We're looking to Jesus because he is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. I don't know about you this afternoon, but my heart is encouraged because I serve a God who endured a cross. I serve a God who despised the shame. But I serve a God who did not stay on the cross. And I serve a God who did not stay in the grave. But you know, just like I know that he hung there on that cross and he let them stick a spear in his side. Yeah, he hung there on that cross and let them put a crown of thorns on his head. Yeah, he stayed there on that cross until he hung his head in the locks of his shoulders. Yeah, and what they did was when they brought him down off that old rugged cross, they laid him in a borrowed tomb. And you know that he stayed there all night Friday. And he stayed there all day Saturday. But you know, and I know that early on Sunday morning, he got up with all power in his hand. And I come to tell you this afternoon that no matter what you're dealing with right now, you ought to be glad that Jesus didn't stay on the cross. You ought to be glad that he didn't stay in the grave. But he got up with all power in his hand. That's why you can face what you're facing right now. That's why you can deal with what you're dealing with right now. You may not have a lot of money in your pocket, but he got up with all power in his hand. You may not be driving the fastest car, but he got up with all power in his hand. You may be dealing with hurt in your heart, but he got up with all power in his hand. Some of you have lost family members, but don't throw in the towel. He got all power in his hand, and he is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. And let me tell you what he is doing at the right hand of the throne of God. He's making intercession for you and for me. In other words, what he is doing is he's saying, God, they're dealing with some hurt right now, but it's all right. Look at the nail prints in my wrist, and look at the nail prints in my feet. I know they messed up, they did it again, but look at the nail prints in my hand, and look at the nail prints in my feet. Can I tell you that the only reason you're here right now is because Jesus is at the right hand of the throne of God. I wish I had a witness here that could testify that every test that I passed, Jesus did it. Every mountain that I've climbed, Jesus did it. Every river I had to cross, Jesus did it. Every burden I've had to bear, Jesus did it. Tears in my eyes, but Jesus did it. Weight in my heart, but Jesus did it. Tired in my body, but I'm looking to Jesus. I'm out of here, y'all, but I just came to tell you and your pastor, you've endured 11 long years, but all you need to do is look to Jesus and stop worrying about it. Greater Jerusalem, you've made it this far, and all you need to do is look to Jesus and stop worrying about it. Look to Jesus in the morning. Look to Jesus in the noonday. Look to Jesus when the sun go down. Look to Jesus late in the midnight hour. Grab your neighbor by the hand and say, neighbor, look to Jesus. Look to Jesus and he'll work it out. Look to Jesus and he'll make a way. Won't he do it? Won't he fight your battles? Won't he make your enemies leave you alone? Won't he make the crooked place straight? And won't he make the wet place dry? Won't he do it? I said, won't he do it? If you know he will, then say yes. Yeah, yeah. Yes. Yes. That's all I have for you today. Not 7 steps to get a mansion. Not 12 steps to become a millionaire. All I have is to come and tell you to look to Jesus. Look to Jesus. And there may be one here. There may be one here this afternoon. You've been, as they say, looking for love in all the wrong places. You've been looking for peace in all of the wrong places. You've been looking for happiness in all of the wrong places. Might I suggest a change in perspective? And might I suggest to you, look to Jesus. Instead of a bottle, instead of a joint, instead of money, instead of people, why don't you try looking to Jesus? And tell me how that works out. Let me tell you how it's worked for me. I've overcome trials and storms, tests and situations that people will never know about. But with my assurance, or with my faith in Jesus, I was able to say to myself that it won't always be like this. The Lord will perfect that concerning me. And sooner or later, it'll turn in my favor. It's turning around for me. But it's not just turning around for me. It can turn around for you too. If you would come and give your life to Christ. Come now. You don't have to wait another second, minute, hour, or day. He is here for you now. He is welcoming you now. He is accepting you now. Not about what you're wearing or where you come from or how you live. He wants you to come now, and he can make your life brand new. And he will take care of you if you come to Jesus while you have time. Come now. Is there one? Is there one? You've been dealing with hurt and pain, but you've been searching in all the wrong places to relieve you. Tylenol can't do it. Excedrin can't do it. Advil can't do it. But Jesus, when he heals you of that pain, you won't have to take another pill. You won't have to go back to the doctor. Not saying that you won't be sick and you won't have pain, but what Jesus heals, no man can unheal. Jesus won't give you a wrong report. He's a doctor who's never lost a patient, lawyer who's never lost a case. If you would come to him. Is there one? Is there one? All is well. All is well. Well, the invitation has been given. None have come, but there is still room at the cross.